Welcome back to One Comic Book a Day, where we're covering Adventure Comics 163, Superboy's Phony Father. Another small stake story where Superboy is constantly putting civilians' lives on the line unnecessarily. I would complain about it later in the story, but he is doing it pretty consistently. I don't have strong feelings towards this story. I think it does the low stakes okay. Not great, but okay. It's nothing too obtrusive in the way he's handling things, other than putting people's lives in danger. And it doesn't get overtly boring with what he's doing, though nothing he does is particularly all that interesting. And he doesn't really have to do any of this, though he does it because he wants to help. Though I will put it on Clark's father, Jonathan, sort of blaming Clark for all this, and that's not fair. This is not Clark's doing. So there's a man by the name of Phineas Fenton. Phineas is having a bad go of luck right now, which is usually how a lot of Superman stories or Superboy stories start, with characters who are going to be introduced for the issue. Their lives are not going particularly well. He's lost his job. He couldn't get into the chess club he wanted to get into. Stuff like that. And while Superboy's doing something, he has a fantasy. Those kind of fantasies where you fantasize about having a different child? Kind of insulting to his own child. Maybe this guy isn't 100% great. And maybe we should improve him. And maybe that's where we kind of went wrong with the story. No one kind of learns a lesson. There was a lesson to be learned here. Not a strong lesson, but there was a lesson to be learned. Sometimes Superboy comics teach the wrong lessons to the wrong characters, and sometimes they don't teach any lessons in a story that calls for a lesson to be taught. It's really fascinating. I want to get into the head of these 50s writers, especially when they like having stories about teaching lessons, and why they don't do it when it seems actually necessary to the plot. So Phineas starts bragging that his son is Superboy. To be fair to Phineas, his son Dick looks just like Superboy, a fact that Superboy even knows and exploits by having Phineas pose as Superboy outside a bank so criminals won't rob it while he's off doing God knows what else. Sometimes he's not even leaving Smallville, so how much crime does Smallville have that he can't just be at this bank or get to this bank quickly? Phineas is making a lot of promises about what Superboy can do to people across town. This is when Clark's father gets on him for this. Clark then goes ahead and does all these things, impressive little feats like soundproofing a room from a guy who is driven crazy by a gigantic clock. Things you want Superboy to be handling. I know it's a small stake story, but we can, find other things for him to do. I'm sure small town farming needs a lot of work, not just soundproofing things. It's a fine line about finding something fun for him to use his powers for in a small stake story. I know we can do it, but you need to be a little more creative. Though this has been a problem throughout, even bigger stories about using his powers more creatively. Superman still has the problem of him just running into a room and throwing somebody around. Come on, the dude can immediately run them into prison. Just a little more creativity with what he does. And Phineas even doesn't believe when Superboy actually shows up, thinking that maybe he's using super speed to show two images at once, which is fascinating because this would work in a story where his secret identity is in jeopardy. Lana would have fallen for this, or Lois would have fallen for this easily. But when it's not that kind of story, someone is aware that he can do this. Be a little consistent with how he can do these things. I don't get how much other characters know about his powers. This was a problem early on when newspapers wouldn't believe that he was real. But you would think Lana and Lois would have the best understanding of his superpowers, seeing how often they are around him and how obsessed they are with him. But no, Phineas can possibly figure this out, except he's wrong here. But I think where things kind of fall apart is in the climax, which so many of these stories fall apart in the climax. They really do not understand where they're kind of going with the story, and they like to just end them fairly quickly. Here they have a better setup, and that is, of course, criminals are going to get involved with him, thinking that his son is Superboy. Superboy lets a lot of this happen so he can finally figure out that, no, his son isn't Superboy. And it takes till this moment, because he was that blinded by his own little success of having his son be Superboy. But Clark wants him to still feel good, so Clark convinces him using his powers, so he's not a parent there, that he is the one defeating the criminals. This guy knows Superboy can be in two places at once to create a double image, but he can't figure out the reason he can suddenly beat criminals is because Superboy is helping him. I know I shouldn't find logic here, but still. So he still gets to be a hero and successful from what Superboy does. He just thinks he did it on his own, and the people of Smallville think that as well, even though they should know better too. It's a lovely little moment for him at the end. We just needed to rethink a lot of what he did in this story. Probably we could have had more conflict with him trying to prove it to this father that he wasn't Superboy, seeing that was, the whole point of this comic. And still, he was putting civilians' lives at risk for no reason other to spare their feelings. But I can't really fault it on being a poorly written story. It is fine for its era. Okay, that is it from Adventure Comics 163. Superboy's Phony Father. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. Hit the bell icon to get notifications when a new video goes up. I do this Monday through Friday, but Fridays is Bat Friday, where I cover Batman story and either Detective Comics or Batman. Until next time, let's ponder the question, whatever did happen to the boy of tomorrow? What do you think Dick's up to now? Does he still have the Superboy costume? Okay, have a great day.